But first, last night, Thursday Night Football, Browns defeat the Steelers in Cleveland. It was windy. It was cold. We saw how badly the kickers were doing. We saw missed extra point, missed field goal there. But the Browns take the victory there, 29-13. Jacoby Brissett,
17.
whatever it was. My laptop's reloading right now, so I don't get to see what the score is. I kind of just had to guess that. Um, the Browns looked to be the better team. Jacoby Brissett had himself a pretty good game. Nick Chubb, leading rusher in the NFL. Amari Cooper, his first game wasn't that good, but weeks 2, weeks 3 has looked pretty impressive
Yeah.
there. Steelers, on the other hand, things are not looking good.
No,
Things are
not
not
at
looking
all.
good. The offense is kind of in shambles. The fan base is split as to whether to go with Mitch Trubisky or go with Kenny Pickett, and things are looking very rough for the Steelers going
Mhm.
forward.
Yeah, absolutely. To add on to your point, I mean, they have that little thing going on between Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. However, like Pickett could be the guy, but their play calling has just been abysmal with Mitch Trubisky. However, for all you fantasy owners out there who bought low on Amari Cooper after week one,
Almost did.
congratulations. I almost did
I
too.
almost did.
Yeah, I wish I did. I almost bought low on him after week two. But yeah,
Tyrell's still kind of
but
relatively selling him low.
yeah, kind of yeah. And burnt brisket out there didn't look too bad. Uh, sorry, I'm still a Dolphin fan. I did not like him last year.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't. He did his job. He didn't.
Yeah,
He wasn't careless with the ball. You're not getting athleticism out of Brissett. You're not getting flashy plays. But and I saw a tweet from Adam Beasley last night. Like maybe Flores was holding back both Tua and Brissett, which is
yeah.
crazy to think about.
That is crazy to think about. And honestly, maybe. And where has this David Njoku been? As you
Yeah,
know, most of us here are from South Florida. We know that he went to the University of Miami. He was great there, but he has just been so mid in the NFL. And then he just has that crazy game. Like, where has that been his entire career?
I think it was just all scheme because like a lot of those passes were caught in the same area of the field. Like
He had a screen pass too.
yeah, he's
That,
athletic. Like we know that if nothing else, he has that athleticism and can be a very good option for the
mm-hmm,
Browns, even though we haven't seen consistently. We've seen it in individual weeks, but we haven't seen it consistently out of him.
exactly.
And the Browns offense as a whole is not that good. So
No.
you have Amari Cooper out wide. I mean, the running back game is arguably best in the league. But the offense isn't good. Meanwhile, you look over the Steelers and their offense outside of Trubisky and the offensive line isn't that good as well. The offense for the Steelers should be good if they had a good quarterback, which is something that I want to talk about. And those watching on YouTube will see by the title. Defense does not win championships anymore. The Steelers really have been very defensive oriented for our entire lives and really the
Mm-hmm.
history of their franchise. Like Ben Roethlisberger is a Hall of Famer and he had a very good career. But towards the end of that, when he started to fall off a little bit, they did try to rely on the defense. And now in 2022, they have the most expensive defense in the league, but they're missing their best defensive player in TJ Watt. And now things look very rough. The
Yeah.
offense can't move the ball. The offense can't consistently pick up first downs. They can't get into the end zone. Mitch Trubisky, he has something. He's not actually a terrible quarterback, but there's a lot missing of his game. He misses a lot of throws. And the Steelers, for like I said, as long as they've been alive and relying on defense, and what has that gotten them recently? It's defense. Defense alone is not the way to go anymore.
I mean, like you said, I mean, they had TJ Watt for pretty much all last year. He was arguably supposed to be defensive player of the year, and they still only went what 8-1. Like, how do you still manage to only go 500 on a 17 game season? It's just it's crazy to me. And that was with Big Ben, being like awful his last year, but I haven't really seen anything to say Mitch is better this year so far. Like we know Mitch can actually, do something given he has taken the Bears of all teams to the playoffs before.
Yeah,
So what is missing? I think it's Matt Canada's play calling.
it is very traditional. It is like, oh, he does end arounds with Chase Claypool. Like that's the level of ingenious or creativeness that you're going to see out of Canada's offense. What we saw last night, the Browns defense 2 years ago, we thought the Browns had a top 5 defense. Now we're kind of looking at it. Last night, Miles Garrett was hardly in the game at all. I really like Denzel Ward, but their defense,
Clowney was also out.
yeah, and Clowney was out. The Browns' defense, for what we thought they were 2 years ago, has kind of underachieved and not been that good. But you look at the offensive skill positions that they have. They have the best running back core in the league, arguably.
100%.
Amari Cooper, I'm still a big fan of Amari Cooper.
I
Seven
love him.
catches, 100 yards yesterday, and a touchdown with Jacoby Brissett, who, as Dolphins fans, you'll never see us arguing to defend Jacoby Brissett. The Browns have an offensive-minded head coach in Kevin Stefanski. The Steelers do not. Mike Tomlin, defensive head coach. The two philosophies, just on paper, are so vastly different. And the Browns, with their backup quarterback, beat the Steelers yesterday pretty comfortably. The defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who is the best in the league, is unarguably is the most expensive defense in the league, wasn't. I mean, it's not that the Browns played extraordinarily, but if you're the best defense in the league and you're going against Jacoby Brissett, I expect a win. I expect you to come out there with a win if you're the self-proclaimed best defense in the league. If you're allocating so much money onto the defensive side of things, where are the results? And that as well as how the Steelers have, or not Steelers, how the Patriots have gone. The Steelers and the Patriots, very similar mindsets, how they build an organization, and they're respected in the NFL. But in today's NFL, they're not going anywhere. They're not going to be winning anytime soon. Looking at the Patriots offense, it is horrific. It is horrible. The defense, up until this year, has been pretty good, and probably the defense is still good because Belichick just finds ways to replace guys on that team. Neither of these two teams are winning anything anytime soon. The Steelers haven't made a Super Bowl since 2010, lost that to the Packers. Last time they won a Super Bowl was back against the Arizona Cardinals, but that is a different era from what it was back then. You can't win on defense. You have to have a quarterback that can do something a little bit special at the very least. You need offensive skill position players, which to be fair to them, they do. They just don't utilize them properly. So if you're a Steelers fan, yeah, a lot of them right now are crying for Kenny Pickett, but do you at all believe that Kenny Pickett is going to do much better with his team than what Mitch Trubisky is able to do? I don't.
I'm not 100% sure. Now, I do think Kenny Pickett, being that he was a rookie working with the rookies, he has a connection with George Pickens, who is probably their best receiver right now, and they aren't using him at all. He had, 4 catches yesterday, if that? I know he had like 4.9 fantasy points.
Yeah, that one flashy catch.
Yeah,
but outside of that, he's done nothing this season.
And you could tell he's extremely frustrated with not getting the ball. Chase Claypool, I mean, he just does not look good to me. He's not really getting open, and when he's throwing the ball, it's like he's half effort. Like he's not playing for the love of the game anymore. He's just playing to play to collect a paycheck. Deontay Johnson, that man plays with a passion, though. He has a different type of work ethic.
Yeah.
He gets open. He had a drop issue early in his career. He did have a couple of drops yesterday, but I mean, he still played really well, and they're just not getting him the ball either. So why are you in an offensive scheme not getting your best players the ball? You have Najee. You're not really, creating any runs for him. I mean, you have a bad offensive line, but it's not any worse than what the Bengals had last year, and they went to the Super Bowl. So is that offensive line argument now, toast?
Their offensive line is not good. Now they've looked better than we have expected them to, but it's not a good offensive line. Like when they had Le'Veon Bell and they had a top 3 offensive line every single year, it was a little different because you could run the ball, you could hand him the ball 25 times a game, and because of his skill set, it worked.
It wears down a defense.
And also he was excellent in the passing game. Like prime Le'Veon Bell when he was like 24 years old was fantastic. He was a one-man show, and then obviously Antonio Brown and the rest of them showed up.
It's crazy to think that he's still in his 20s.
Yeah. The shelf life of running backs is beyond their first contract. What's the worth?
And I have a bold statement later in the segment to actually bring up about some certain running backs falling off.
Mm-hmm. There's a few, and speaking of running backs, we haven't really talked about Najee Harris, who with his offensive line, he hasn't had any big plays. Like even back last year, he didn't have a lot of large runs. A lot of his success last year was in the passing game,
Mm-hmm.
and he was averaging below 5 yards a carry. He had a few very good receiving games, but Najee is not given an opportunity to succeed. Pickens is not given an opportunity to succeed. Deontay Johnson is the person they throw to the most, and I think he's earned that with his, like you said, his work ethic. Chase Claypool has done nothing to differentiate himself in this league. And then the play calling with Canada, I don't I don't understand their philosophy. And you just talk to Steelers fans, like you talk to Zach Lamb that I work with, and he's optimistic. He's optimistic every year, but that's just, for one, that's based off their history, and two, it's not high hopes of a potential Super Bowl. I don't think any Steelers fan will sit there and tell you that they could win the Super Bowl. I don't think,
Not even in the next 5 years, to be quite
and
honest.
not really in the last 5 years either. The last opportunity they got even close was they lost to the Jaguars in the divisional round in 2017. But even
Mhm.
then, like that team, that was the best that team could possibly be. That wasn't good enough. Big Ben was really declining. Well, that was like Big Ben's last year of Big Ben. Then it all started to fall off at that point.
Yeah,
But they decided to go with defense. They decided to pay TJ Watt, which absolutely you need to do. Pay Minka
one hundred
Fitzpatrick,
percent.
you need to do. But you need to do something with the offense. You need it. They need, in order for a defensive team to work, you need a surefire quarterback. That's why Flores was so big on going out and getting Deshaun Watson or Tom Brady or somebody else.
I'm glad you brought that up actually, because you know the an example I was actually going to use is that last year, with the Bills games, both Bills games, it was actually pretty close at halftime, and even the second game, it was 10-3 going into the fourth quarter. That defense kept the Dolphins in those games. But when you have a lackluster offense, the defense eventually wears down and they break. And there's nothing really you can do about that. Like this game didn't blow wide open until the last like 4 minutes.
Yeah, and even
So
then, like we saw last week, the Browns were up 13 with less than 2 minutes left to go, and they still managed a way to lose. And Joe Flacco is not a world beater, but Joe Flacco did what he needed to do to win. And also, it appears to be that the Jets offense is a little better than the Steelers offense.
that is
Which is,
crazy.
and
To think about with Joe Flacco of all
yeah.
people, Mr. like 39 years old or something.
And I make the same argument about the Patriots. Where's the big plays going to come from? Where do you see how are you going to put together a full 4 quarter game where you end up with more points than the opposition? You are so hardly relying on your defense, and I like you bring up the Bills game last year, up in Bills Dolphins game up in Buffalo last year, because we were so close within it. What was the difference? Josh Allen versus Tua. Tua's been really good this year so far, and we're glad to see it. Hope it continues. Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the league, in my opinion. If you want to say he's top three, okay. I say he's the best quarterback in the league. If I'm starting a franchise right now, I'm taking Josh Allen. Is he gonna play like this for the next 10 years? God knows where he's gonna be when he's 34 years old instead of 24 years old. I couldn't tell you. But what I can tell you is right now, he is a difference maker in the NFL, and he is the reason why the Bills are the number one team in the league. They have a good defense on the other side, don't get me wrong.
Great
But
defense.
playmakers and quarterbacks even more so than playmakers, decide this league. Tom Brady doesn't have anything necessarily on film special about him, but he's the best quarterback in NFL history, 6 rings. Matt Stafford, look at the offense that the Rams were able to run with Jared Goff versus what they're doing now with Matt Stafford. They are opening things up entirely. The run game is almost evaporated.
Mm-hmm.
How many touches did Cam Akers have last week? Darrell Henderson got in the end zone, but they're such out of sight, out of mind. The Dolphins, Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert, virtually no impact through the first 2 games outside of Chase Edmonds' long rush last week to get the
Yeah.
Dolphins within the
On the
10-yard
ground
line.
wise, anyway.
Yeah. So the ground game is going away. You need a star quarterback, and you need to surround him with superstars. The Steelers, I'll give them credit one aspect. They do have the receivers. And historically, since we've been alive, they always seem to have pretty good wide receivers. They can't get the quarterback right. And then on top of that, they can't get the offensive system right. Tua, big question mark coming into this year. Okay, guess what? We're going to give him the best opportunity to succeed by giving him Tyreek Hill and giving him the best young offensive-minded coach in the league on the market at the time. And now it's working. Steelers, offensive system stinks. The quarterback, mid. And this is what you're going to have. They're going to win some games. They punched the Bengals in the mouth week 1. They're going to surprise some teams and be able to put some points on the board, get some pick sixes. But they're going to be so heavily reliant on that. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. And like you said, for the next 5 years, Steelers fans don't really have a hope of a Super Bowl anytime soon.
Yeah, it's just a wash at this point. And it's like, when do you pick up and restart? Because you still do have one of the best defenses in the league. And it's not like you really want to trade TJ Watt. That's your moneymaker right there. Him and Minkah Fitzpatrick are the big flashy names. Minkah Fitzpatrick, I feel like whenever I watch him, he's either really boom or really bust. It's so weird.
Safety, I think, are kind of like that, though.
Maybe that's it, but I don't know. I feel like when I watched him on the Dolphins, he was always consistent. But then when I watch him on the Steelers, he's like either he tries to make the big play and either he does or he doesn't. It's like a suicide play in baseball, to reference that, when you go to pick up the ball on the side and
it just drills past
or
it.
they call it do or die. Do or
Yeah.
die. That's what it is, not suicide play. But yeah, they call it do or die, and I feel like that's the way he plays with the Steelers. Maybe that's their mentality on.
And it's worked.
You know, it has. I mean, he had a blocked field goal that helped them win the game. He had a pick six. I mean, to go on. I mean, he's just had, really good success with the Steelers.
He has, and when it works, they'll win games to beat the Bengals. But to rely on that as your team, I don't think it's going to work. It's not working for the Steelers. It's not working for the Patriots. Both fan bases, there's very little confidence. And we saw the game last week, the Steelers and Patriots game. It's the most boring game of the week. Most boring game of the year, really. There was a few touchdowns in the game, but nothing special, nothing to be happy about as a fan.
I actually watched the film review on that game. I was gonna make a video on it, and then I just there's nothing special about. It's really just defense on defense, and I mean Mac Jones and Mitch Trubisky just being mid throughout the entire game. But is it them? Is it them? I'm kind of with you on the protecting Mac Jones this year at least.
Yeah.
Because if we're making that argument for Tua the last 2 years, we have to do the same for Mac Jones. We can't be hypocrites.
He's not giving opportunities to see, just like Tua did. And then the last point on this that really I probably should have opened this up with is just look at this Super Bowl champions recently. Last year, the Rams, or not even just the champions, but let's look at the matchups. Last year, you have the Bengals and the Rams, two best receiving corps in the league, Matt Stafford versus Joe Burrow. We see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl for 2 out of the last 3 years, Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. Even the 49ers, who do have a very good defense, they also have a brilliant offensive-minded head coach. And that's kind of what we see with the Dolphins. Great defense, brilliant offensive-minded head coach to make the offense better. We don't see defensive teams getting into the Super Bowl. Last time we did was, with the Patriots, but you still had Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Teams that win now are on offense, and if you can't find a way to build your offense and
put points on the board.
I guess that's the only simple way to put it. If you can't put points on the board, if you can't also the time of possession, if you just can't put drives together and then have them result in touchdowns, you're not going to win this league, and you're definitely not going to win any Super Bowls, in my opinion, winning in that way.
Correct. Yeah, 100%.